Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. So we just decided we're going to go live to Facebook. We are talking to Professor Buick. He is from Synexa, and we are talking about recurring miscarriages. So Synexa, I'm not going to go into much about what Synexa does exactly, so I'll leave it up to Professor to talk about it. So when it comes to infertility, there's a lot of, we have patients that actually, ladies that it's easy to conceive, but to keep the pregnancy, that is another thing. And then also when it comes to, or otherwise, they just can't conceive. But Professor Buick actually deals with women that they can conceive or struggling, but obviously keeping the pregnancy or maintaining or holding the pregnancy for 9 months. So thank you, Professor, for taking time out to do this with us, to have this talk with our women. If you are watching on Facebook, guys, if you have any questions, please just put it in the comment section, or at the end of the talk, you can WhatsApp us, DM us, or send us an email, info@fertilitysolutions.co.za, and I'll send your details over to Professor Buick. So thank you again, Professor, and we can't wait to hear what you got in store for us.
Thank you, Leanne, and thanks for everybody who might have dialed in and to be listening to this. So yes, Synexa is based in Cape Town, but we do have laboratories as well in London and Berlin. So we're just a specialist biomarker laboratory. What that means is that we do specialized testing for people participating in clinical studies. But obviously, we also have the specialized diagnostic services that we render locally, especially in South Africa, to women who are battling to implant or recurrent implantation failure. So I'm dealing a lot with couples who are wanting to have children, who are possibly visiting infertility clinics, or before they go to the clinics, they come to me to be tested. So basically what I'd like to talk about today is the immunology of the endometrium. Obviously, it's something which is not spoken about very widely within the fertility clinics, and that is, they see the couples as, the one being an egg donor, the other partner being the sperm donor, and they think that by mixing those two gametes together, bingo, we're going to have a child. But unfortunately, the endometrium is an immune-rich organ. And if the immunology, if the profile of that endometrium is not perfect, unfortunately, the woman might fall pregnant. She'll test beta HCG positive. It starts climbing, and 4 or 5 weeks later, unfortunately, it ends in a miscarriage. So just to let you know, obviously, a pregnancy is, in fact, it's a partnership between two individuals who are completely different. They're what we call the allogenic individuals. So literally, we have to consider that the fetus trying to implant into the woman is, in fact, a transplant, because it carries the father's fingerprints as well as mother's fingerprints. And unfortunately, the immune system is trained in such a way that the moment the immune cell sees anything foreign, they are trained to get rid of it. And unfortunately, the fetus will be seen as a half foreign body. And that is, if you don't have the right immune profile, those immune cells will attack the fetus and cause a miscarriage. So the maternal immune system is very, very important when it comes to the endometrium. If she's in a state of tolerance, in other words, that her immune cells will tolerate and allow the development of the fetus, we refer to as being tolerant. If she's aggressive, unfortunately, then she will, obviously, it will lead to a miscarriage and an implantation failure. So we have to try and see, how can we intervene? What type of testing would be needed to determine whether she is, in fact, tolerant when it comes to the implantation? So, it's very different when we talk about infertility. Infertility to me is, it's irreversible. It just means that the woman is not producing eggs, or the husband is, azoospermic. It's not an infertility issue here. It's more a lack of implantation. That is why we very often refer to these women who try to implant, but they abort, as the so-called spontaneous recurrent aborters, okay, or implantation failure. There are several factors. Please, I don't want to create the impression that it's only immune system involved. There are hormonal factors, there are possibly physical factors, which hopefully that when these couples present themselves at the fertility clinics, that all other factors have been sorted out, be they hormonal imbalances or maybe physical, endometriosis being one of them, etc., that prevents the woman from implanting. I'm referring here to purely the immune factors. So it's a contributing factor, especially when the woman falls pregnant recurrently but loses it. It's something that, the couple should consider having themselves tested. So basically what we do is, in order to do the endometrial profiling, instead of going in and doing a biopsy of the endometrium will give us the answer, but it's pretty invasive. And what we now know is that the menstrual blood resembles exactly what the endometrium shows. In other words, it's a representative, because we have to remember that during a normal cycle, the woman prepares her endometrium so that she can receive an embryo. And if she does not fall pregnant, she sloughs off that endometrial layer and she menstruates. So what we actually ask the woman to collect menstrual blood in which we can actually determine the profile of these immune cells. So it's a true representation. There's no need for biopsy, in case there are listeners out there who are worried about having to go in to be biopsied, etc. Not necessarily at all. It's menstrual blood. And basically what we are doing is we are looking for specific immune cells that we refer to as natural killers. Now, natural killers sound very aggressive, because that's what they do. They kill. But they were described originally in the peripheral blood, where that's exactly what they're supposed to be doing. They are very aggressive cells in the peripheral blood. They look out for, viral infected cells or cancers, etc., and kill those cells. That's why I want to refer and make sure that when we're talking about the endometrium, we talk about the so-called immune regulatory NK cells. That's why I like to differentiate them to call them ENKs or endometrial NKs or UNKs, like the Americans, for uterine NKs. And they are very, very different in function. In the endometrium, they are baby-friendly. They induce the state of tolerance. Whereas in the peripheral blood, they are very aggressive cytotoxic. So they are very different. Although they express similar structures on their surfaces, their function in the two organs are extremely, extremely different. So in the endometrium, NKs are the ENKs or UNKs. They are immunoregulatory. In other words, they regulate the aggression displayed by other immune cells in the endometrium. But by doing that, they allow the implantation to take place. And it's quite interesting that if you look at the changes in the immune cells in their profile during a normal cycle, never mind a pregnancy, and that is in the red here on this diagram. In the red is the typical surge of estrogen within the first, from day 1 up to about day 10, 12. Obviously, ovulation takes place around about day 15. And obviously, there's another little surge near day 22, 23, and then it finally declines near day 28. And if the woman is not pregnant, she obviously menstruates. In the blue is the profile of the hormone progesterone. And you'll notice that up to about ovulation, progesterone actually flatlines. It's very low. And it's only in the last 7 days that we actually see the surge of progesterone. Now, you might ask, why is it important for us to have, or the woman to display, the surge of progesterone? Well, if you look at the profile of cells and how they change in relation to the hormones, you will notice that those natural killer cells, suddenly from day 22, 23 up to day 28, they increase tremendously in numbers. And the reason for that is because the progesterone is getting the endometrium ready should the woman have fallen pregnant at the time of ovulation. So these NK cells are directly under the influence of the progesterone. And very often we see this abnormal profile due to the fact that the woman's progesterone surge doesn't really happen, or it's not sufficient. And the moment we can increase the progesterone in the luteal phase, that last 7 days of that cycle, those ENKs double up in numbers. Literally, I always say to my couples, it's like these cells are waiting there with open arms, receiving the embryo and closing in on the embryo and saying, I'm going to protect you. Because they are inducing a state of tolerance, preventing them from being attacked by the other aggressive cells. So it's directly under the influence of progesterone. Very important. That is why when a woman menstruates, it really shows it's a true reflection as to whether she has sufficient of these natural killer cells, or ENKs or UNKs. So the UNK and the endometrium are very, very, very different cells to what we see as the aggressive NKs in the blood. And that is they differentiate into cytokine-producing cells during the luteinizing hormone surge. They allow the implantation of that little embryo. And what's important is from the early days of pregnancy, they increase in numbers, doubling up literally every 10 days, up to about mid-gestation. They're very high early, and then they decrease by mid-gestation. So they're very important right up front. As that woman is trying to implant up to 10, 12 weeks, that is when they are primarily involved. T cells, you might come across T cells. Yes, they are also important because firstly, they are there to protect the woman against infectious agents like, HPV and herpes simplex or candida. But unfortunately, the T cells are aggressive. So it's this yin-yang that takes place within the endometrium. We have T cells trying to protect the woman against infectious organisms, and yet we want the UNKs to be increased. So they're working yin-yang against each other. And unfortunately, the T cells are aggressive. And what happens is there's a certain type of T cells that should be present during the pregnancy. And we refer to this as the so-called Th2 for the T helper 2. And again, these Th2 cells are directly under the influence of progesterone. So the Th2 T cells are good, the UNKs are good, and both are influenced by the progesterone of the woman. There's another T cell type which is critical to have in the endometrium, and these are called T regulatory cells or Tregs, and they are outright immunosuppressive. They secrete these factors like I've written here, IL-10 and TGF-beta, in that these T regulatory cells, these cytokines, immune suppress the environment where the implantation is taking place. So if a woman has aggressive cells, these Tregs become activated, and what they do is they're secreting cytokines all the time to say, whoa, hold on, let this embryo develop. They work together with the UNKs, very important. And they increase also with the pregnancy because they induce a state of tolerance, and they are positively correlated to the UNK. So if you find a woman with low UNKs, she tends to have low T regulatory cells as well. The moment we manipulate and get the woman's UNKs up, we tend to have an increase in the Tregs as well. And they are there to promote that pregnancy. Obviously, there's a very, very fine balance between the T regulatory cells and the other aggressive T cells like the Th1s. So basically, in a normal pregnancy, we would have this balance, C, which is predominantly very heavy Treg presence. So because they are heavier than the Th1, basically that leads to a normal tolerance state, and a normal pregnancy can follow. However, if the woman has a very aggressive Th1 or T cell profile, not enough T regulatory cells, basically it leads to an infertility condition, miscarriages, and preeclampsia as well. So everything is in balance. The immune system is also balanced. You don't have enough of the regulatory cells, the aggressive cells take over. Obviously, something which is becoming more and more important at the moment is why would a woman present with an abnormal aggressive T cell profile and not enough T regulatory or not enough UNKs? And it comes down to this vaginal or endometrial microbiome. We know now that women who battle with chronic vaginal thrush or vaginal, infections, aggressive profile of bacteria, or even endometritis, which is infective, basically happens those women also battle to fall pregnant. And the reason for that is because these little commensals, these good bacteria, they tend to be made up predominantly of lactobacilli. So they change the pH, firstly. They are lactate fermenting, and they are, in fact, baby-friendly because what they do is they actually activate those T regulatory cells in the endometrium. So it's critical for a woman to have a normal vaginal or endometrial microbiome in order for her to be able to really implant. And we know that there's a direct link between what we call a vaginal dysbiosis and imbalance and implantation success. So it's very, very, very important that the uterine microbiome is really spot on. You know, I'm talking out loud out there, and that is the women who are battling to fall pregnant, who know about their chronic thrush, who know about, you know, bacterial vaginosis, etc. Do something about that, because that could be the reason why they are battling to fall pregnant. Because these women would need to have decent levels of the good lactobacilli in order to keep those immune cells, the aggressive ones, under control. If they've got this bacterial vaginosis or bacterial endometritis, what happens is those aggressive immune cells are even more active, and the moment she tries to implant, cells get rid of that little embryo.
Can I just stop you for 1 second, Professor?
Yes,
I'm
please.
listening to your talk and all the big words you're using and everything. I'm trying to keep up. But what I'd like to say to the women out there, and I see we do have people actually listening into it, whenever when you're dealing with infertility and you're going to fertility specialists and you're saying to them, starting to conceive, you know, it's miscarriages, and we start on a course of treatment and we try and get pregnant. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. And what we're not realizing is we're always saying, why am I not conceiving? So why is it not working? Why am I not carrying this baby to term? Why do I keep having my miscarriages? But this is the reason why. You know, and what I'm loving, what Synexa does is Synexa is actually saying, okay, let's go to the bottom of it, to the core, to the root, and see why you're not conceiving and why this is not happening. And you're actually getting to let's first fix it down at the bottom so that everything else works on top. And this is exactly why it's important to have this conversation, and why you should go and see Synexa about this, because you're actually finding out exactly why. Not just let's try and get you pregnant, use all that money, spend all that money on all the treatments and everything, and hope that the pregnancy, you know, you carry the pregnancy to terms, where we can actually find what the root cause of it is. So thank you very much for doing this, and please continue. Sorry to break your word, but I
no, not at all. And Leanne, I just want to mention something. Yeah, I always said to my couples, you know, yes, it costs you people a lot of money, okay, but no one's putting a cost to the emotions that the couples go through.
Yep.
Cycle after cycle, you know, they lie there and they say, is this going to work? Is this going to work? They hype themselves up waiting for that little beta HCG test, and it comes back negative. You can't cost that.
Yeah.
And, you know, if it's not working, take a step back. Yeah. Take a step back. Try and see what can be done. What is the underlying issue? And it's not just a matter of mixing a sperm and an egg and you're going to have a baby. Yeah. That is a foreign body trying to implant. And if that little environment is not baby friendly, be it because of this microbiome, which is now, you know, we are now seeing more and more studies going into the role of the vaginal and uterine microbiome and infertility, these little bugs impact directly on the immune cells. So if you have aggressive bacterial issues, candida, etc., you are more than likely going to have a very aggressive endometrium that you will not implant. So let's fix what's broken before we go ahead.
Correct.
So it's a yin yang. It's a yin yang. We don't have everything under control. I mean, it's, as I say, it needs the perfect hormonal profile needs to be there. You need to have good, no physical, you know, interferences to the implantation process. You have to have the right immune cells. And in order to get your right immune cells secreting the right factors to make you conducive and tolerant to accepting a pregnancy, it will not work. And as we know more and more about these immune cells, so we can now start targeting therapies to address these underlying issues. No, at the moment we are collaborating with a Danish firm who are busy developing special types of treatments to address this Vaginal Microbiome specifically for infertility couples.
Wow.
Watch this space. This is going to be coming as part of the management of lack of implantation or infertility, as they call it. So it's very, very important to be done.
Mm.
As I say, we don't have all the answers yet. Okay, it has to be holistic. We have to look at the microbiome. We have to look at the peripheral blood profiling. We have to look at the endometrial profiling. And altogether, it works in harmony with the hormone profiles and the woman's endometrium. So the management of infertility is, it does cost money, unfortunately, through these IVF procedures and ICSIs, etc. But the emotional cost, folks, it really breaks my heart at times when I have, these couples come and sit and say they've just had their 7th IVF and they've just heard it's failed. And you can see it's tearing them apart because there's no emotional support. So we have to be a lot more, not alternative. This is not alternative testing.
Yeah.
This is complementary to get to the true answer, to get to the bottom of things. It has to be complementary diagnoses. And also what really, really surprises me in many, many cases is that, the male factor is completely ignored because they see, oh, well, it's not good enough, but it's not perfect, but it's good enough for us to work with. I'm sorry, you can't guarantee the quality of a sperm when there are so many parameters which are not normal. That is not correct. Let's do something for the males as well. We very often overlook the male partner. Very happy to try and help out anybody out there, even if it's just advice. Here's my address. It's pbuick@synexagroup.com. Women are more than welcome to contact me. I'm very happy to set up a Zoom meeting and just chat to them, just advise them what they can try, etc., at no cost to them. If they don't have themselves, it absolutely does not cost them anything. I'm there. There's nothing more rewarding than receiving an SMS, a WhatsApp, or an email to say, guess what? I'm pregnant. That to me, that really long term, it touches my heart, and I really want to reach out to them. A lot more people who need their help. But thank you for the opportunity. And if there are any questions or any issues, please contact. I'll be more than happy to answer.
Wow, thank you so much, Professor. There you go, ladies. Professor's address is pbuick@synexagroup.com. Thank you so much for doing this talk. If you are dealing with infertility, if you're dealing with recurrent miscarriages, or you are busy with IVF treatment and it's just not working, please go and see Professor. Email him, and I'm sure he'll be willing to help you. You heard it. I mean, it's complimentary. If he can help, he'll help. So please. Thank you. So I can't say thank you enough because, I've never had someone come on here and say that, just email me. I'd be willing to do a Zoom, a meeting.
Not a problem. And I mean it. And I mean it from the bottom of my heart.
That is amazing. That is what our women need. So please, ladies, take the opportunity to do this. Again, thank you very much, Professor. And
welcome.
We hope to see you again soon. Have a great day.
No problem. Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.